The Finance Ministry has requested immediate retraction and apology from the running mate of the new Patriotic Party, Dr. Bawumia, on assertions made in his lecture on the IMF bailout.
Describing his presentation as disappointing, Deputy Finance Minister Kaisel Atuforsen says Dr. Bawumia should have cross-checked his facts and figures.
Kaisel Atuforsen was responding to issues raised by NPP running mate and economist Dr. Bawumia. Deputy Finance Minister disputed figures quoted with regards to the country's budget deficit and capital expenditure to GDP.
Between 2001 to 2008, capital expenditure as a percentage to GDP was indeed 6% on average. So from 11% to 6%, who was he deceiving? And these are numbers that are verifiable. Even on the GDP that he's using the assumption, I have a problem with it. Because he's using a GDP at the time, during their time, it wasn't rebased. A GDP that was rebased and the nominal increased by 60%. So he's not comparing like with like.
On interest payments to MDAs, he insisted Dr. Bawumia excluded internally generated funds and donor inflows when he compared interest payments to allocations in the 8 key ministries. Dr. Bawumia also claimed Ghana had been sanctioned by the African Development Bank for failing to repay its debt. This the bank has denied.
The nation deserves an apology coming from him because he should have checked his fact. Because AFDB has never gone public. So for him to say that he's going to go public in a public lecture, supposedly this is a lecture by a visiting professor of economic and governance, a public lecture for students and for the citizens to watch and hear, I think he should have done better.
He insists Dr. Bawumia should apologize to the nation and get his facts right when it comes to figures on the economy.
In a related development, the Deputy Finance Minister Kaisel Atuforsen has again debunked claims of job losses in the public sector as part of IMF conditionalities.
So he was reacting to Dr. Bawumia's lecture on the IMF bailout.
Dr. Bawumia asserted that the 940 million bailout will not shore up the economy. He also indicated that the IMF will further require governments to remove all subsidies on utilities and petroleum products. But Deputy Finance Minister Atuforsen insisted these assertions were false.
I sat through the negotiations throughout. I was privileged to be a member of the government negotiation team. And I can tell you that there was nowhere that the government of Ghana agreed with the IMF that we are going to lay off workers. He was pointing to what we call the public sector reform. Public sector reform to mean that is job cut. Look at the previous IMF programs that we've signed. One of them include what he himself was part in implementing. There is element of public sector reform in there. And public sector reform does not mean retrenchment.